I'm happy to introduce today's host, Sachin Parmar, who is a workplace technology manager at Just Eat. Sachin has been working in the technology industry over 8 years, and he will share a bit more about himself shortly. He's also presented twice at the Jamf Nation Roadshow in London, both 2016 and 2018. Just to let you know, before I hand over to Sachin, if you have any questions, please hold on to the end. You can also type them in the text box as well. We'll get back to them at the end. But now it's over to Sachin.
Hi everyone. I'm Sachin. I'm the workplace technology manager at Just Eat, and I'm in charge of kind of the Macs across the world. And hopefully, you kind of get a feel for our future Mac thinking at Just Eat. So I'll start with kind of our company vision. So our vision as a company is to create the world's greatest food community, and that applies to kind of all of our customers and internal staff. So we try to make our business processes easier for our internal staff, for them to eventually make their customer processes easier for our Just Eat customers. We're in 12 markets across the world, so that kind of shows our kind of global reach of what we manage and where we are. We also, within the last kind of 6 to 8 months, entered the FTSE 100, so it shows how rapidly we're growing as a business. And obviously our Mac management in this scenario covers the entire span of all of our markets. So a little bit about me. I've been in IT for about 8+ years. I've been an admin of Microsoft SCCM and Jamf in 2 other companies, so DMGT and Just Eat. There's some links if you want to kind of get a hold of me. So I'll kind of briefly touch on our journey and how we came about Jamf. So in January 2015, we had about 150 Macs globally registered to our Active Directory domain with Centrify. I joined around May time, and then from June onwards, we started gathering requirements on our current processes and how the technicians would kind of build their Macs. So we sat down with the technicians and went through how a build was created, and everything was manual, everything was off a hard drive. Everyone would queue up a bunch of software, double click on them next, and then carry on, which is very time consuming. And build would take somewhere in the region of about half a day to a full day if it was the sole thing that someone was working on. In July 2015, we trialed what was then Casper Suite from Jamf. And then the trial was successful. So in August to September, we submitted a business case for Jamf to the head of technology, which in November was approved, and then we purchased it via a reseller. We then had our 2-day booked jumpstart. So Jamf came on site and helped us configure the instance to our business needs. And then we had completed it in February, and by kind of end of March, we've had about 180 policies with all of our kind of configurations built within inside Casper, and that kind of helped automate the imaging of Macs. So we kind of took the 1-day full process, manual process, to about 15 minutes fully automated to build a machine off the network. We placed a local distribution point, which was a Mac Mini, in about 8 countries. In 8 locations over about 6 countries. And then we rolled out Casper Suite to about 400 Macs. So we had Macs that we didn't know were in the company. So when we did a network search for Macs, we obviously found more. And then the standard going forward for new Macs were all to be imaged with Casper Suite. And then by kind of March to September, we had completely shut off Centrify. All of the Centrify Macs had been migrated to Casper, and Casper was the new BAU tool for managing Mac devices. In September of 2016, we were then ahead of the curve, and we were ready for a day one deployment of Sierra, which was unheard of at Just Eat. So it was quite a good turnaround internally to get it a new OS release, which something previously that would take us kind of 6 to 8 weeks to get ready. We were ready on the first day. So I presented at Jamf Nation about 18 to 19 months ago, which was the first session I attended. I kind of put these slides up and I said, this was our future journey, so this is what we aim to achieve within 18 months. We wanted to do a full device enrollment program and volume purchase program and bring that into Casper Suite or Jamf. We then wanted to have ADFS single sign-on with two-factor authentication when you logged into the Jamf portal. And we wanted a full zero-touch experience for all of our Apple devices to end users. So that was the future goal. And then quite recently I spoke at a following update at Jamf Nation Roadshow. So our kind of update was we had 10 global entities enrolled into our DEP and our VP programs, which were all then configured into Jamf Pro. From the same time, we had implemented single sign-on with two-factor authentication. So by default now, anyone that accesses Jamf requires to two-factor auth. Then from December to January, we implemented NoMAD across the business to handle kind of our Kerberos tickets for mobile user accounts. And then we started trialing users with local accounts and NoMAD. And I'll touch on NoMAD slightly later on. We then decided to do something quite funky, and between December and January, we were working on a kind of open source real-time dashboard, which uses the Jamf Pro API, which kind of reports basic stats and stuff as you would, which is presented on the TV that we give to kind of senior management, and it lets us see our environment at a quick level. By February, we had changed our build process, so all user accounts were now local accounts, but they would be used in conjunction with NoMAD, and machines are still bound to Active Directory. In March, we kind of tackled our big change. We were in the process of hardening our network, so we were implementing EAP-TLS or 802.1x configuration. And we worked with the networks team to try and implement a method and a solution for user-based certificate authentications for the network on the Macs. And we had then migrated kind of 100 devices that were legacy from an existing MDM into Jamf Pro. And then we took the plunge. So from July to October, all Mac and iOS devices that were purchased through DEP by Apple or our authorized resellers were ready for Mac OS High Sierra. And then we configured a zero-touch build process, removing the legacy netboot build process. And we also implemented Splash Buddy, which is something I'll touch on. And then quite recently, we rolled out so we're a G Suite customer, so we rolled out G Suite for Enterprise iOS MDM management security policies to work in conjunction with Jamf Pro. This doesn't take into consideration the ownership type of the device, so you can have an institutional device that's managed by Jamf, but a personal device that has security enforced by Google. So we're covered from both angles. Our basic kind of overview of our infrastructure. So we have Jamf Pro in the cloud. We have a cloud distribution point which sits in the Amazon S3 bucket, which we have Microsoft ADFS which sits in the cloud, all configured with DEP VPP via APNS, and that goes to our Apple devices. So it's kind of a fairly lightweight model for Jamf Pro, but I think it works for us especially, and because we're quite global, it's quite a nice lightweight thing to manage. So for companies that don't know or haven't started the device enrollment program process yet, we'll kind of cover what the DEP is. So firstly, DEP is free. You have to register the company onto the DEP portal at deployed.apple.com. This might have changed to see business.apple.com now. Once you are approved, you'll get your own DEP customer ID, which you'll then have to inform your suppliers, and you'd have to obtain their DEP reseller ID and add them to the DEP portal. That way, if any new devices are purchased from your reseller or Apple, they would go directly to your MDM as soon as they're purchased. You need to link your Jamf Pro MDM with your Apple DEP, so you need to download a public key from your Jamf Pro JSS and upload it to the Apple portal, and then a server key will be generated, which you then need to upload into Jamf. So that basically completes the handshake, and they're both talking to each other. Then you need to create a kind of pre-stage enrollment. So this kind of controls the behavior of what happens to a device once you turn it on for the first time. You can kind of turn some screens off. You can turn off the privacy screen, the location services screen, Touch ID, all of that stuff. You can basically bypass all of that, so you can go straight from connect to Wi-Fi, make an account, straight to desktop. It will vary per company, but it's obviously good for you guys to kind of look at this and do what suits your needs. You can control the behavior of the first user account that's created as well at the pre-stage enrollment. So if you are a company that doesn't allow administrators on their Macs, and you can control that behavior for the first account on the Macs, because historically a first account for a Mac that's created is an administrator, but you don't have to with this process. And then you make your kind of build processes. So you create a set of policies that will be configured to what the business require, and you run it on a trigger of basically enrollment complete, and that will then fire off your build. So in tandem, we use something called Splash Buddy. So Splash Buddy is open source. Its goal is to provide a kind of seamless, elegant onboarding process for Mac users that use DEP. It's quite nice because it prevents users from kind of using their device straight away after it's been enrolled into Jamf. And it shows kind of a real-time update on the status of software or tasks that are currently happening in the background. And the main thing for us was we were able to brand it to our company. So it gives it that extra bravado, let's say. So to configure Splash Buddy, you obviously first head over to this Splash Buddy GitHub page. You can download the kind of latest stable release. You then need to modify your index HTML. So within the file structure, you can get to an index HTML, which you can then, if you know HTML, you can then rewrite for it to suit your business needs. So what we did is we put up a kind of a YouTube video, which was our corporate video, which is what the users would see when the app is running. And then there's another file for the preferences. So then you have to modify your preference file to include all the steps that you require or your build process requires. And that's kind of where the behavior of Splash Buddy is controlled, which then controls what happens next, what the status indicator should be, and kind of what preferences, if The build process can continue if something's not finished, but a full preference key can be found on the Splashbody wiki. So once you have your file structure in place, it would look a little bit like what's on the right hand side of the screen. You would have your icons, you'd have your preferences files and stuff done. Once you're ready and you're happy with the version, you would then build all of that into a single PKG file, and they've supplied a build PKG shell script, which basically grabs all that information, puts it within an installer. And it's important to note that the smaller the file size, the quicker it will execute after the enrolment. We then modified our build processes to kind of what Splashbody recommends. So you have to start with 2 numbers, then something else. So this is our kind of basic one. We do a notification for users to wait. Splashbody kicks in. We enable the file vault on the machine. We install an antivirus. We rebrand the machine, and we install some standard software, so stuff like Google Chrome, NoMAD, TeamViewer. Number 50, we kind of create an IT admin account. We can control this in the preset enrolment, but for us, we wanted to give the users that visibility of knowing that we are creating an account on that machine, just so we can manage that device. But for us, it's more of a perception thing. You may find that it might not work for you, and you'd have to create it in pre-stage enrolment. And then we do some final checks at the end. We kind of set Apple remote desktops to the local admin account, and we then restart the machine and then display self-service. And all of these, to note, are controlled with a trigger type of enrolment complete. So as soon as the device is enrolled, it will fire off these steps. So what does that look like? So I have a video on the blog if you want to see what this looks like in a video. So essentially the user comes, they turn on the Mac for the first time, they select the country that they're in, select the keyboard, they join any Wi-Fi, because it doesn't matter for us. Well, I'm using the guest Wi-Fi here. They then get a screen that says this device is now managed by Just Eat, or your company, and then you click continue. You then create an account for the first user. We then left this option on because we wanted to let the users set the location services. So by clicking customize settings, they enable their location services, and that is it. So they get to the desktop, and then straight away Splashbody kicks in. So from the build process I mentioned, we then display a video. We give a visual indication of what's being done at the time. So we'll first start with File Vault. We'll then go on to the antivirus. We'll rebrand the machine. We'll launch Cisco AnyConnect. We'll install Google Chrome, NoMAD, TeamViewer, the IT administrator account. We do some final checks. So right now we've rebranded the entire desktop and the experience. We put a security policy banner in place, and we're just making sure that the final bits are in place. And then once it's ready, they click continue and they get to their desktop, and then the user can now work. So I spoke briefly earlier about EAP-TLS. So we do 802.1x certificate-based authentication. So the global sign nutshell version of what certificates-based authentication is the use of a digital certificate to identify a user, machine or device before granting access to a resource, network or application. So for us, we're always a modern thinking company. We'd like to find creative solutions to a problem. So in all of our offices, we have no wired cables, and we're full Wi-Fi in all of our offices. But it does come with its own specific challenges. So for .1x, you obviously need to speak to Active Directory in order to request your certificate. So the ultimate aim of this process was to try and make it easy for the end user, for them to run it themselves. So rather than IT to run it, the end users can do it themselves. So what did we do? We worked with the networks team, and we set up a hidden Wi-Fi SSID, which can be authenticated to the network with one service account. This service account has line of sight to Active Directory and the certificate enrollment server. It has no rights to do anything else. We then created a config profile based on that hidden SSID with a key of auto join. So we supply the credentials and the certificate that's required for it to join the Wi-Fi, and we made that into a config profile. We then created our secondary profile, so the actual profile that grants access to the corporate network. So this contains all of our certificates, so our root certificate, our intermediary certificates, and the config for the certificate template to get the user's certificate once requested. We then downloaded both of them off the portal, and then we made them into a package. We put them in a shared location once they're installed, and we added a post. Then we then created an Active Directory bind policy. So this is a policy that has a custom trigger, and this will make sense in a minute. We then created a script. So we did a post-install script on the packages. So once those two files were put on the machine, we then ran this. So it installs the hidden SSID config first, which lets the machine join the hidden SSID. We then set a variable of network check to 0, and we'll do a loop. So we'll ping the domain, and if the ping comes back, it will say the network is found. We'll set the variable to 1, and then we'll carry on with the remaining processes. So 1 will detect who the logged in user is. We'll rename the machine to the serial number, as we feel that that's unique enough for a machine to be identifiable. We then bind the machine to the domain based on the previous Active Directory policy with a custom trigger. So it binds as the serial number to AD. We then wait. We then run the secondary profile, because now it can see AD. So we'll run the actual config profile that can request certificates as the user using the secondary profile. And once that's all done, we then remove the hidden profile from the machine, remove traces of the files that were installed. We then wrap that up into a self-service policy, which basically uploads the package to Jamf admin, and we then added the script to create run after the install was complete. And we then made it available in self-service. So after the build is complete, the users will see this button, they click and configure. So what actually happens? So when the user clicks configure, you can see while it's running, it connects to the hidden SSID. While it's running, it binds to the domain. The user then gets a prompt to enter their Active Directory credentials. The certificates come down onto the machine, and the Mac is then authenticated onto our network. So one of the most important questions I get asked a lot is do we bind our machines to the domain or do we not? For us, quite frankly, we bind them purely for the EAP-TLS certificate-based authentication, but it doesn't have anything to do with the users themselves. So we use NoMAD instead. So NoMAD works a little bit like Apple Enterprise Connect. It helps Macs off binding to AD, and it gives them the functionality of a Mac as if it was designed to AD, and it can handle Kerberos tickets quite well. It was written by Joel Renich, and obviously Jamf now have an investment in NoMAD. You can still download the open source version at the NoMAD website, and it's done quite well that Apple have themselves added it as an identity option in their Mac deployment overview guide, which there is a link there. So NoMAD kind of works on a predefined preferences you set as an organization. Preferences are located on the NoMAD website, and it's important to note that the local password sync controls the behavior of local accounts. So if you have local accounts, that's a key preference to set. Once you've set kind of all your preferences, you can wrap this up into a mobile config profile and then deploy it via your Jamf to your machines. Once that's deployed, you can then deploy the NoMAD application. It's a simple PKG file which can then be installed on the machines. So what does this look like for the end user? So NoMAD, you can set the password this way. So the user would have to go to the menu. They click on change password. They then get a prompt to enter their existing password and enter a new password and verify. Once they've changed their password, they'll get a notification that says the password's changed successfully, and then you'll have to wait about an hour before the Kerberos sticker is updated and your expiry date that sits in the menu bar is updated. So inevitably I get asked a lot, what happens if an IT admin or someone changes a user's password on AD? How does that reflect on the Mac? So if a password is changed in Active Directory, so I've changed a password of an AD account on AD, so I've reset the password, set the new password, and the password's been changed. I then go back to the Mac, I sign out of NoMAD and sign back in. Once I sign in, I put in the new Active Directory password. NoMAD then will recognize that that is a new password, and it will prompt the user and say the local account password and the AD password don't match. Please enter in your existing Mac password to update your Mac password, which handles all those keychain issues and stuff like that, and it makes life a whole lot easier. So once the user puts their password in, and that's done. So now both Mac password and AD password are aligned. One thing we've done very recently is we've automated our software deployment. So we use a Mac Mini which sits on our network with the Auto Packager application. We configure Auto Package with all the applications that we need, which then downloads onto the Mac Mini. We do some manual testing of the applications just to verify stuff. Once that's done, we will then upload that software to an Amazon S3 bucket. The clients will then connect to a Monkey S3 repository once a week to find any software updates, and it will install it using Monkey tools. So sorry for this slide's quite hefty, but we use Auto Packager for downloading our stuff. So this is what Auto Packager looks like, and at the bottom we've kind of indicated all the software that is relevant to our business. So stuff like Microsoft Office updates, Google Chrome updates, Adobe updates. We've indicated all of that. It runs on a 24-hour schedule, and if it finds a new version, it will download it, and then we'll get an email to say new versions of this software have been downloaded. We'll then go and test those software just to make sure that there's no kind of bugs or any issues, if there's any compatibility issues, before we even push that to our repository to deploy. Once we've done the testing, we then use the Amazon AWS CLI tools to push the software that's based on the local Mac to an S3 bucket, which acts as our Monkey repository. So we use Monkey tools in the background. Monkey tools is open sourced, and I highly recommend if you go and read up on it and try and implement it, because it's really good. But we then use Monkey tools on our Macs themselves to connect to the S3 bucket, and if there's a software version mismatch for a higher version, it will be detected and it will update the software on the Macs. So this happens automatically. The only manual part of us is a sanity check that I would recommend, because obviously there could be some software that could cause some issues. So it's a good check to have in place, and this usually runs on machines every once a week. So it kind of handles the software updates for the Mac and third-party software updates that are key and critical that need to be updated. So you'll always have the most up-to-date version of that application. So another thing that I touched on earlier was we created an open source real-time dashboard. Our dashboard kind of looks like this. We utilized the JSS API, and we queried our own inventory data and presented it in this format. We used the dashing framework, which is, I think, now forked to smashing framework, to display that information, and it lets us kind of identify key areas at a high level, and we can give this to our senior management to show them what's happening on our Mac estate, rather than them having an account in Jamf and not necessarily understanding what they're looking at. It gives us an overview, and there are some dynamic tiles. So for example, if our licenses run below 50, the tile will go red, and it means that obviously there's a call to action. We need to do something about those licenses, or order more, or review Macs that are not checked in 30, 60 or 90. At Just Eat, would recommend using a Jamf organisation training pass. It's fairly inexpensive for the reward you get out of it. So over kind of the last 12 to 18 months, we had one. We've sent 11. We've now got 11 certified technicians, or Jamf 200 as it's known, 3 certified admins, and 2 certified experts, or Jamf 400s. So I thoroughly recommend, as a business, if you were investing in people, to buy one to go on the training pass, because it's a very good course. Thank you.